I started my real estate journey by renting my spare bedroom out on Airbnb for $35 a night. So we had the HELOC, and then our van life got cut short by 6 months. So we still had a bunch of money saved up.
Like, I can reset. I don't have to live a life of desperation. I can think now, what do I actually want to do? And I'm just curious about your money habits that allowed you to do that.
If you need $50,000 for a down payment, you're having to spend $5,000. In the grand scheme of things, that's nothing. Just add it to the purchase price of the home.
On the evaluation of these properties, like, talk to me about the transition and also what that was like.
How you leverage your money with real estate. And there's 4 accelerators.
Cassidy, officially welcome to the Wealth Juice podcast. You and I run in similar circles. I was just looking at how many, Instagram friends that we have, and there's like 1 billion. We're in the same content mastermind with Rich Summers. That's how we met. But real estate, we have a bunch of friends in common, real estate in common. So I appreciate you taking the time today, man. I'm looking forward to having our listeners hear about your story.
Corey, dude, so excited to be here. Thank you for having me. And also, Jesse Ray is another common friend. Yeah, and he inspired me to do the conference sponsoring with my podcast.
Okay, that's another. That's another. I didn't even realize that was a connection too. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Jesse's a good dude. So it's a small world. It's a small world once you start just reaching out to people.
It really is. Jesse's like one of our, becoming one of our better friends. Like, we were out at Immersion. He runs a mastermind, 7 to 9 figure mastermind. He's twice a year. We were there in October. We will not be there in April, but we're going to be there again in October. So yeah, he's great. And yeah, it is a small world. A lot of people end up knowing each other, kind of uplifting each other, building up each other's businesses. And that's why we love the content, the real estate and everything. But tell me a little bit about yourself, man. I want to learn about, the Cassidy pre-real estate as you worked your way into that game. And just tell me a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and what sparked the interest, why real estate, why personal branding, and why build a business even?
All great questions. Cassidy pre-real estate was an engineer. He worked in corporate. He thought that climbing the corporate ladder was the way out. And, I'll switch from third person to first person.
Yeah.
I was really good. I was really good at climbing the ladder and adding value into everything that I did. I loved learning. I loved growing. I loved building. That was something that I learned about being an engineer. And working in corporate was, if I was building and growing, there was no stopping me. I also used to get really frustrated with all the team members that weren't building and growing at the same pace that I was. And so that's been a big growth journey for me. But I live in Kirkland, Washington, which is just outside of Seattle. I invest in short-term rentals and hotels all over the country. I started my real estate journey by renting my spare bedroom out on Airbnb for $35 a night. That was when my wife and I were living in our condo, and we were just trying to cover like 3/4 of the mortgage, or like half the mortgage. And so $35 a night. If you look at the pictures now, you're like, why would anyone stay there? But people did. We had faith in ourselves. We had faith that we could create a product that was valuable at the right price point. And we had fun doing it. I would come home on my lunch breaks to flip and turn and clean the room and set it up. I would have my headphones in for being on a meeting sometimes. So doing double duty, but I loved it. And at that time, we only had one shower in the Airbnb. And so we had to coordinate with the guests, who's using the shower at this time. This is OG Airbnb days.
Yeah, this is what Verbo makes fun of Airbnb for right now, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And it's not as common. The only reason that you're really staying in someone's spare bedroom is you're really on a budget. Back then, it was less about budget and more about being in the right location, because we're half a block from the lake in Kirkland. We're 2 blocks from Google. We're very close to Amazon, Facebook, all that stuff. And so it was more about people that wanted to stay in the right location and have an easy commute, and they could bike or walk to where they were coming into town for. So that was part of it. And then obviously you have the lake right there. So I learned everything about Airbnb just doing that. And so that was sort of the crash course. And then I quit my job before, we didn't have anything lined up. We just went and lived in the van. We had a van. We were doing van life. If you remember back then on Instagram, hashtag van life was like going off, and we were
Yeah.
part of it. And the van was really to get headspace. We couldn't even dream anymore. We couldn't even think about the next step. We were stuck in the trap so hard. I have been calling corporate life a trap for a decade now, because you get up, a lot of us are hungover from the night before, because we went out, we stayed up late, maybe we were just watching Netflix and having a couple cocktails, but you're hungover for whatever reason. Maybe you go to the gym, but you're just working off the booze or whatever you just drank. And then you go to work for 8 to 10 hours. You come home, you probably work a little bit more. You eat dinner. It's probably not the healthiest dinner. Maybe you're doing groceries, maybe you're cleaning up the house. And then you watch some Netflix and you go to sleep. I did that every day for years. And then, not to mention the things at work that were just troublesome, and conflict conversations, and you're doing stuff for other people, and like you literally don't have any time for yourself to think and dream, and you're stuck in this trap, like the mouse on the wheel. Like, it's real. Yeah. And so the spare bedroom was our start, and then we live in a really nice neighborhood, and we just started looking around, like, what are all these people doing that we're not? Like, what is it about these people making money that they can afford these houses? They're not here all the time. And that's when I just started digging into real estate hard. I was like, what is it? Why is it? I knew that people don't pay taxes in some way. So I knew there was like something. And, I was an engineer, I was smart. And so, I just knew numbers. And so then we decided to go all in on Airbnb because of the cash flow. We didn't want to be landlords. And I still don't really want to be a landlord. It just doesn't appeal to me, and it doesn't like light me up. And so that's why we went Airbnb. Loved the design. We wanted to buy houses, and we basically bought 2 houses every year for 5 years. And like, each house was bigger designs, bigger renovations, bigger budget. I was also doing consulting, which I don't really recommend. Like, doing it for as long as I did, having like a consulting job or a W-2 job and doing the real estate. 6 years is a long time to be double dipping and growing on the real estate side.
Yeah.
But you asked about why start a business in real estate, why do this. It's also another trap, a little bit, is the tax trap. And when you buy Airbnbs and when you buy real estate, and let's say you're a full-time real estate investor or real estate professional, whatever active income you make, you can offset through cost segregation and depreciation from buying real estate. And I was like addicted to growing my active income as much as I could and buying the biggest property that I could. It was 6 years of basically like paying 0 taxes and making the most money that I've ever made.
That's so you built momentum, dude, like anybody does. And you started small, literally in that game. Probably couldn't have started smaller with a spare bedroom, $35 a night, right? And you built momentum. My question for you is, I think people probably like, maybe you kind of nonchalantly went through this, that you quit your job and the van life. What did you have some specific money habit that allowed you to quit the job? I mean, when what you said is interesting, because it kind of made me think like, oh, the hamster wheel, like paycheck to paycheck, but you clearly were doing something with your money in order to feel comfortable enough to be like, all right, like, I can reset. I don't have to live a life of desperation. I can think now, what do I actually want to do? And I'm just curious about your money habits that allowed you to do that.
Something changes in your ability to say no and make decisions when you have a stack of cash in the bank. So we knew that we needed money in the bank to be able to go live in the van. And we had planned 12 months. I wanted 18 months. And so we went so extreme on saving and not buying anything. And so this is during the time of my life when I realized, when you have a goal and you're so committed to that goal, nothing else matters. Now, we probably went maybe a little bit too far. By the end of by when I quit my job, there was like holes in my clothes. Like, I was like an IT manager, and I looked like I just walked off the street some days. Like, yeah. It was not as healthy as it could have been. So you need balance. But basically, we did not buy anything for 18 months that was not to get us to being able to quit our jobs and live in the van. I was taking home food from the corporate lunches any like leftovers of catering or whatever, I was taking it home. I haven't talked about this too much, but we were so committed and like crazy about saving money at that time and not spending any money. So that was number one. And it was around the time that Marie Kondo was like popular for her organization and minimalism and all that stuff. So we were getting rid of so much. And the thing about going and living in the van is you can't just put stuff in storage. You can't just leave it at the house, because we were renting the house out so that we could have rental income while we were on the road. We had to like put things in piles, donate, keep, and van and trash, basically throw away. It was really, really hard. And so if we brought anything new into the house, we had to get rid of like 10 things. That was the rule. So there was a ton of savings. Like every decision was like, does this get us closer to leaving and quitting our jobs and living in the van? And if it doesn't, then we didn't do it. Like 100%. There was like no deviation off of that goal. It was 12 months of just hardcore saving.
I think one of the things that people overlook is like the seasons of life that you go through, and people put permanence on them. So I'll give you an example. Like, if you were to live the rest of your life, Cassidy, as that frugal person that's like taking lunches from, like, you probably wouldn't have too many friends. Like people would be like, all right, this guy's like ridiculous at a certain point, but you built discipline and in a season of your life. And I had a friend text me the other day, and if you're listening, you know who you are. I won't say your name. And he's like, dude, where have you been? Like, what? I haven't seen you, man. Like, are you change? Like, are you looking for new friends? Like, are you changing? Is it? And I was like, my text back to him was like, I'm in a season of my life, man. I'm growing my business, and I love you. I love you as much today as I did 5 years ago. And I'm just in a season right now where I need to put my head down. I quit my job 6 months ago. Like I'm building this thing. So I only bring that up to say, like, you were in this season of this frugality, and it worked out. Look where you are now. You're buying hotels. You have a podcast. You're some level of financial freedom, right? So my question for you is like, what were the first few steps that you took after you decided you were going to buy 2 a year? Were you buying these with 25% down and then furnish it? Like, how did you build the momentum, like tactfully, to have enough money to kind of springboard this?
Great question. So before we quit, I had enough wherewithal to say, I think we need to go get a HELOC on our primary.
Yep, I did that
because
too.
Yeah. So if you're thinking of quitting your job, go get the car loan or go get the HELOC or like go get financing approved, because once you quit your job, it's going to be a lot harder to get loans on anything. And so we had the HELOC, and then our van life got cut short by 6 months. So we still had a bunch of money saved up that we didn't spend. And I went back to consulting. So it's not like we were in a financial dire straits, but what I did is I took all that momentum and I took all that money and just kept funneling it into real estate, because we did the first one, which was in Cleveland, which was a business decision. People are like, why Cleveland? And it's like, well, because we cash flow $35K a year off of a $277,000 house.
That'll do.
Like the numbers were crazy, especially back then and through COVID. And then when I learned about cost segregation and depreciation, and it was like, okay, I'm all in. If there's anything about me, especially my wife too, is like, we are persistent, we are dedicated, we are hungry. Like when we get our sights set on something, we're going to go. And so it was literally just capturing all the momentum, the low interest rates, the boom in the market. And we just went ham for 5 years. And the mistake that we made is we didn't scale up with support in certain areas as best we could. We still took things on ourselves, but that's for this next phase in life. But the other thing I should mention is we liquidated our 401ks.
Yep.
So
yep.
I think we had
really all in there.
Yeah, really, really all in, right? Because people are scared to liquidate their 401k or cash out their 401k because they have to pay the fee. And I'm like, okay, well, let's do the math on this. If you don't liquidate your 401k, you're not going to buy the property, and you're not going to cash flow, and you're not going to get tax benefits, and you're not going to get appreciation. If you need $50,000 for a down payment, you're having to spend $5,000. In the grand scheme of things, that's nothing. Just add it to the purchase price of the home. If you want to make yourself feel better about having to pay that fee, just the house costs an extra $5,000. That's it. And then if you you'll have to pay taxes on the income, but if you cost segregate and depreciate, then you don't. So, and when you look at the growth over time of a 401k compared to, and we can get into velocity of money, but when you look at the velocity of money, which basically is commercial real estate, boutique hotels, storage, and Airbnbs, just not as much. When you look at the velocity of money, when you buy like an Airbnb or commercial real estate versus just sitting in the stock market, no other investment vehicle gets you all the benefits and the returns like real estate does.
I find it fascinating, Cassidy, that, and this is like a thing that I go back and forth on, because like Ryan and I are business partners, and and I love this about him. He's a little bit more conservative than me, and this is good. You need this in a business partner. I'm a little bit more like the idea guy, if you will. And I've thought about it a bunch. Like, has anyone ever created something massive and great in a large business by saving up in their 401k? And I'm thinking like, I mean, it's not a bad thing to have. I'm not knocking it. If you work a full-time job, now mine just transferred from a 401k to a SEP IRA, and I'm thinking I'm contributing here, and I'm like, for a period of time, I wasn't contributing because I was getting things figured out, making sure the cash flow is right. Now I'm contributing, and I'm thinking like, this isn't going to make me wealthy. It's just going to keep me some sort of like theoretical safety net that I can look on a screen. Like, it's not actually really helping me. And if I don't need to pull from it right now, but I'm thinking like, I'm not trying to tell anyone that's listening to this podcast to liquidate your 401k if you don't have a plan. But I do want to talk to somebody like Cassidy, or if we mentioned Rich Summers, he liquidated his 401k to get in the boutique hotel space. And like, you kind of never look back if you don't stop. He talked to me about like, let's talk about the velocity of money. Let's talk. You actually have a bunch of Instagram posts where you talk about it. It's one of the things that I wanted to bring up today because I know you're insightful on it. Like, first of all, what does it mean? And then tell me how you use that theory to springboard your journey.
Yeah, fundamentally, velocity of money is how you leverage your money with real estate. And there's 4 accelerators. And when I came up with this, it was because of all the work that I had done on all the Airbnbs and how much effort and energy and time and everything, but it still didn't feel like enough. It still didn't feel like I was getting my valuations. I wasn't getting as much cash flow. We were doing really well. Like, honestly, we were doing really well, but for the amount of effort and time and energy and frustration and all that, it was like, there's got to be a better way to do this. And when you buy an Airbnb or a long-term rental, let's just say a single family house, the value of the property is only based on the comps in the neighborhood, right? So if you buy a $400,000 house in a $400,000 neighborhood, that house is worth $400,000. You can make some improvements, but generally they're going to only slightly increase the value. Even if you do a big flip, it's going to increase the value, but only by what the comps are, not by how much money it's making. So this is called the income approach. So with Airbnbs, this is a great example because you can spend a bunch of money to make it look and perform really well. It can cash flow like crazy, but it's still just worth what it's worth to the market. So you could put 200 grand into the Airbnb, but the value might only go up 100 grand. But your cash flow, you might be making 500 grand a year. I don't know. But the value of the property didn't go up, and you might actually be underwater on the Airbnb. There's a lot of people out there that are putting a ton of money up front into the Airbnbs, and they're underwater because they're trying to just generate cash flow.
Yep.
But wealth is built through appreciation. Wealth is built through equity. And so there's 4 accelerators to the velocity of money. The first is equity. You need equity. Well, sorry, the first is leverage. The first is leverage, which is all real estate you get debt on, right? So the ability to buy the entire asset for a fraction of the price. You can't do that with 401k. You can't do that with stocks. You can't do that with any other vehicle. You can put a down payment and you buy the entire asset. And you're like, oh, okay, well, what about the mortgage payment? Well, that's a good thing because it's actually a hedge against inflation. So you have leverage, which we like. And then there's cash flow, which is actually the lowest value in real estate investing is cash flow, because the highest value for me is appreciation and forced appreciation, which is the second accelerator. Forced appreciation, when you can make improvements, you increase the cash flow, and the value of the property goes up based on the money that you're making. So in hotels, let's say I convert a manager's unit where a manager's living there. We don't need a manager to live there anymore. We convert it to a room now. So that room, for relatively low expense when we convert it, is generating an additional $50,000 in cash flow per year. In an average market, that means the value of the property went up by $500,000. So imagine that on your Airbnb. If your Airbnb can make an extra 50 grand, does it go up $500,000? No, it doesn't. And so with commercial real estate, you get the scale, you get all that, but you get more levers that you can pull, and then the value of the property goes up by the cash flow, by the income that you're generating, not just by the comps in the area. So then when you combine leverage and forced appreciation, that's where the wealth comes into play, because you did a small down payment, but the entire value went up. So let's say you put 10% down on $1 million asset, that's 100 grand. You make it worth 2 million based on all your improvements. So the value went up by $1 million. You just got $1 million, but you only put 100 grand down. You cannot do that with cash flow. This is the thing. You cannot do that with cash flow. You can only do that with forced appreciation and leverage. So these are the two big ones. That's what makes wealth building and real estate magical. The last two are equity. Free, I call it free equity, because if you can learn to raise money, then you get essentially free equity into a deal, right? So you should still put your own money into deals, because then you have skin in the game. But essentially, if you can go raise money, you get additional equity. So you don't have to put as much money in. You don't have to put dollar for dollar in to get equity out of a deal. And so you're getting free equity. That's commercial real estate's really where that happens. And then the last one is tax benefits. I've talked about it a lot already. Cost segregation and depreciation. It's the magic wand that makes this whole thing happen, right? There was a famous speech or at the debate in 2016 where Trump said, I'm smart for only paying $750 in taxes. He's saying that because he buys a lot of real estate and he depreciates, and everybody at the top does. That's why these rules exist, is because all the people with money do this, and it's a wealth building tool. And so again, the forced appreciation with leverage is where it all happens. Cash flow is the lowest value part. If you do the math on how much money you make on a deal from cash flow versus appreciation on a good deal, I would say cash flow is about 10 to 20% of the total cash made, and the rest is usually in the appreciation on the deal. So think about that when you make your next investment.
Yeah, most people are looking for the cash flow to try to get out of their job, really, because it's like they're using it as a mask of something that they don't like. So they're like, I need the cash flow to be able to leave my job. When in reality, I shared this story a couple times on the podcast. Like my second deal, duplex, over 3 years, I made an average of $250 to $300 a month in cash flow. So that's like $7,000 in 3 years. But I sold it 3 years later for $100K profit. So I was thinking to myself, I had all this money, and that was $100K. It was probably like 120, 125. I paid fees to realtors, whatnot. But I'm thinking, like, in 3 years, I made $33,000 a year off of the appreciation versus the $3,000 a year that I made off the cash flow. The cash flow is defense, right? It allows you to keep the property. And I've said this on a couple podcasts, but I love the theory of like, well, you put $100,000 down on $1 million asset, and if it appreciates at 3% without even doing anything, that's $30,000 a year that you're getting. So in theory, in 3 years, you've made up your investment just based on the appreciation. And as long as you can hold on to that property, that's why a lot of people say go big before going into, and you mentioned Cleveland. That was one of the places that Ryan and I looked first. And I was going into really, really shitty areas in Cleveland and thinking like, oh, these are going to cash flow $2,000 a month, but it was like a $40,000 home. And I realized I wasn't going to be able to collect the cash flow that I thought. And why do I want the appreciation on a 3% appreciation on a $40,000 home when I can try to get it on a $500,000 home? So when people are thinking about what markets to go in, you got to consider that you just have to give yourself a 5-year time horizon. I mean, in reality, you just do. And if you do that, and you think everything's 5 years in the future, you're going to be so much better off than thinking, I got to squeeze out as much cash flow as I can. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here. My question for you is, okay, so Airbnb, 2 a year for 5 years, you have 10 properties, things seem to be going well. And then you make the transition from Airbnb or short-term rentals to boutique hotels. Well, a lot of people have done that. I mean, we've interviewed, I can name a number of people, Rich and Blake Daly, who we've interviewed, and I'm sure you know these people. So like, is it because of regulation? Is it because of what you just said on the evaluation of these properties? Like, talk to me about the transition and then also what that was like. Because to me, it seems like such a drastic jump. Ryan and I have small ownership in a 43 unit hotel that we put on Airbnb. We own a small percentage of it, but so we're not in the operations of it. So just talk to me about from your experience, what that was like on the transition.
Yeah, I mean, I was like completely burned out from doing all the Airbnb work. I needed to build a bigger business, even though, like I said, we were doing really well. But it was a 5-year time horizon. It was a 5-year cycle, and yeah, I was sitting on all this equity, but I was like, well, what do I do with it? And I don't really want to keep dealing with these houses. And we have a team that operates, and we do all this stuff, but I was like, there's got to be a better way. Like the value of my time has to be better. And like a lot of stuff is still on my shoulders and my wife's shoulders. And like, we're trying to do all this. And
were you self-managing those properties?
no, we're vertically integrated. So we don't, well, we hire out now, but, not like fully. We still keep some stuff. We've had someone that's been with us since like the beginning, and she does all the maintenance and housekeeper coordination. So it's sort of vertically integrated, meaning, we still like act as like CEO and COO.
Yeah. You weren't hiring a property manager and putting it on autopilot is what I'm saying.
Exactly. Which is dangerous to do. There's not a lot of people that can do it. And I didn't want to give away 20 to 30% of our gross revenue, right? That's the other thing is like, that just seems crazy to me. Unless you're a really good revenue manager, my property will perform without you. And maybe that's a bad approach to take, but like there's not a lot of great property managers out there that can do revenue management. So what was happening is there was all this stuff and people and things were getting more expensive, and like we had all this equity. I was like, but I need to do something with it. And so I started investing in myself. That's when I joined the mastermind. And the thing that clicked was really the valuation, the income approach, and being able to work on something that will grow in value when you improve the property. And I was like, okay, well, that just sold it for me. That was really the biggest benefit. And then the other benefit is you actually get to partner with people in a real way because there's more to go around, and you don't want to do this by yourself. You can't do commercial real estate by yourself. You need people. And so I found the best people, and this mastermind that we're in and all the connections that I've made has been incredible because I found all the best people in the industry. The circles are smaller than you think, and other people are great at operating or marketing or finance or this or that. And so you're able to plug in where your skills make sense. And then you just need to learn the new language and find the new relationship. So it is sort of like building a new business. But the other thing that I've done is we're now starting to sell our properties because I want to take all that equity and I want to go double down on hotels and investing in ourselves and scaling the podcast and let go of this old mindset of you become rich by holding on to real estate. Because people say, oh, the principal pay down, you'll have all these paid off houses in 30 years. It's like, well, I have a ton of equity right now because of the velocity of money, because I did all these improvements. Let me sell, let me trade up, just like you were saying. Let me trade up, because would I rather appreciate 3% a year on something that's going to like stay the same? Or would I rather take all that equity and go double or triple my money in a shorter amount of time by going into hotels?
Do you have a rule of thumb for your velocity of money? Like, I asked this because I think people are probably listening thinking, we've told people to do both, right? It really depends on your risk tolerance and like what you want out of your life. And I love that this whole thing is a lifestyle design, right? Like I bought a short-term rental so that I can go down to Tampa, Florida and enjoy it. And I'll make a little bit less money. I hire a property manager so I can be hands off, but it's like, it's making me money. It's appreciating. It's doing all those things. But I've also like entered my lifestyle into it a little bit. So I asked the question because maybe 30 paid off properties is what you want. But Cassidy's saying here, listen, like you're not going to make as much money. You're not going to be able to have the velocity of money work for you. So is there a rule of thumb that you use of like, hey, if I have X amount of equity or my return on equity is X, I'm getting out of this deal. I'm moving up into the next one.
Yeah, great question. So the way that I think about this is that the tax benefits are on a 5-year cycle. And because you cost segregate, depreciate, usually it's on a 5-year cycle. And so then I'm like, okay, well, how much money would I need to get if I sold to really make it worth my time and energy to go do something else? And so I want to be able to double my money in 2 to 3 years. And so that I'm sort of working between like, okay, 2 and 5 years. If it's less than that, that doesn't really feel worth it to me because I'm still getting tax benefits on the property. I'm still cash flowing decently well. So I basically, I started running the numbers on my own properties. And what I was finding is like, okay, if I have 6 years of cash flow when I sell, that feels good. And I'm talking like, so if you're making 20 grand a year in cash flow and you sold that property after all fees and everything, you had 120K in the bank, that's a good time to sell. And a lot of the people that are listening to this are like, well, I have long-term rentals. I should just sell it right away. And I'm like, well, yeah, maybe you should. I don't know. Because depending on the appreciation in the market. But my rule of thumb is when you sell, you get 6 years of cash flow in the bank. Because what you've now done, and if you've held it for 5 years, because you're still getting tax benefits. Because now you take that, you've just accelerated all that cash flow by 6 years. And if you have a good investment vehicle, meaning if you're going to go buy another Airbnb or a hotel or whatever it is that you do, you've exhausted all the benefits of that property. All the tax benefits you've exhausted. You've forced appreciation likely, right? If you do improvements. So it's pretty much going to be worth about the same that it is now, unless you do more improvements to it, right? Because my model is improve, force appreciation. So in 5 years, you've sort of exhausted all of the majority of your benefits in growth. So take that 6 years of cash flow in one hit and then go buy another property. And guess what? You get to restart the tax cycle. So you restart that 5-year cycle. You should be trading up. So your 6 years of cash flow should be able to buy you a bigger property that is going to appreciate even more. So that's what I want to tell people is stop buying these $300,000 houses in the Midwest. Go buy $1 million properties in really nice neighborhoods, fix them up, rent them out on Airbnb for 5 years, collect all the tax benefits, get the cash flow, and appreciate the hell out of that thing, right? That's what I want people to know. The sooner that you can get into larger properties, because let's say it doesn't even cash flow that much, because the rule of thumb on Airbnbs is people want, I think now they want 20% cash on cash return.
Yeah, or I've heard the 20% rule, which is that, and we use
gross
this,
revenue.
Right? Yeah, gross revenue. Like, if it's a $500,000 property, it's got to make $100,000, 20% of that. That doesn't. It's hard to make happen now. I think I've heard Tony Robinson talk about 15%, right? And then it slides to 12. Like,
that's what I mean.
Yeah,
that's what I mean. But so that's why I say go do this. Now I'm saying go into boutique hotels, go into commercial real estate. But if you're not, what I tell everybody, this is the strategy, is go buy the most expensive house that you can buy. It's got to be a good deal. Everything that I'm saying, it has to be a good deal. You can't just overpay for a property. Go buy a property in the best zip code that needs work, that's not foundational. Like, don't repair foundations if the roof and everything is all screwed up. Go buy $1 million house in a $2 million neighborhood. Take your equity, improve it, make that $1 million house worth $1.5 to $2 million. And now you're appreciating on, you just created $250,000 to $750,000 of wealth. And guess what? The cash flow, maybe you don't even have cash flow.
Yeah, maybe you break even, right? Yeah.
Maybe you break even, but you just created $500,000 in wealth or more by doing this strategy. Now, adjust your numbers based on what you think you can do with the amount of equity that you have. But here's an example with Cleveland. We use a HELOC for down payment, and I think we put like 25 grand into improvement. So let's just say, 50 grand, whatever. I don't know. But we cash flowed 30 to 35K a year for 5 years. So let's say that's 150K. And then we sold it for 450 after 5 years. And we netted over 200 grand. So I think in the end we made over $400,000.
Cash flow plus the appreciation, right?
Yes, cash flow plus the appreciation and all that. So on one house in Cleveland, Ohio, we made $400,000. We can take the 200 grand now and go buy a $1 million property. Now we're going to have to put cash into that to fix it up. But that 25 grand in renovations in Cleveland can turn into a $2 million, $4 million property. It can turn into $10 million worth of real estate if you do this strategy, but you have to force appreciation. And I'm talking about like doing luxury flips but you need to go bigger. You can't just buy the $300,000 houses in Michigan just because you think they're going to cash flow. You go to sell those things and you're going to sell them for 300 grand and you cash flowed, but you're not able to trade up or do anything with it. You're not creating wealth. And so this is my whole message is you need to be able to trade up as you go, continue to trade up and use 1031s if you can. But if you sell your property in the beginning of the year, you don't have to 1031 it because then you're just giving yourself the whole year to go buy another property.
14 months to pay. And then 14 months to pay taxes on it or whatever it is, right? Like,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so you just need to buy bigger. You need to buy bigger, right? You can't buy smaller. You always want to buy bigger so that you can offset your tax liability. But the 1031 restricts you by the 45-day rule. To limit us to 45 days to find a replacement property makes you make bad decisions. And so I don't like doing that. I like having the money in the account and being able to go buy what I want to buy.
Yeah, I think 1031 sounds, I've never done it by the way, but I think it sounds great in theory, but the time constraint, it kind of presses you and like, if you're paying taxes on real estate, you are doing something right. Like you're making money, right? So I think it's not all, you don't have to like optimize every dollar to the T. And I think it's funny, Cassidy, because what you said, I actually did. I didn't know about the velocity of money, but I had that $100,000 profit from my duplex and I put it into this short-term rental that I bought for $550. I bought that place for $125, sold it for $225, bought a place for $550. Now that's been about 2 years. The money's been in that property. I made improvements, spent 30, 40, 50 grand in renovations and furnishing. It's cash flowing. It's doing well. I don't know if I'll take that and go into the next one, but the point I want to make is Ryan and I were doing the onesies and twosies, short-term rental, whether it was short-term rental, whether it was a duplex, whether it was a single family, we got to like 8 units between the two of us. And what I realized is that I'm actually so glad I started our podcast because I was able to partner with people who were better than us. And I was thinking, I don't want to buy duplexes and triplexes. I want to do that to start. And anybody that's listening should absolutely do that to start. That's how you get in the game. You can go right to a 32 unit if you want to be like Grant Cardone. I'm not saying you can't, but if you want to learn the game and learn what you like and what you don't like, start that way. And then Ryan and I, we're closing on a 10 unit in this week. And then an 18 unit, a 43 unit, because we're able to partner with people who are better than us, who are doing it full time. And I'm thinking now I'm taking that $500,000 property and now it's a $2 million property or $4 million property. And the velocity of money works that way. So I don't say that to brag. I say that to be like, I'm actually thinking about my journey. And we did that in that way. So anybody has a few rentals here, can you pull some equity out and can you trade up? And that's real life monopoly. And you're a testament to that. So talk to me about one of the boutique hotels. Like, just give me some numbers on a deal, like how it worked out, what you bought it for. I'd love for people that are listening to hear about the NOI, how the money flows with a deal like that.
Yeah. So we closed on the Solvang hotel. I call it the Solvang Hotel, but it's the M in Solvang, California, rebranded to the Marlowe. We are getting ready to officially launch, and I don't know when this is coming out, but we should be fully
probably
launched.
Middle of April. So I don't know if you'll be launched by then.
Yeah. So we will have rooms available. Construction will be done. We bought that. It's 24 units, 2 buildings, actually 3 buildings, because it's 2 hotel buildings, and then it's got a massive, nice duplex that we also had to buy as part of the deal, where the previous owners, one of their family members is living. So we're doing a long-term rent on that, which complicated the deal. But I think we did like 5 different types of financing. We did 2 versions of sub 2 versions of seller finance, and then we got a bridge loan and raised money. So technically like 5 pieces of debt, or 6 pieces of debt on the property, because it's different parcels and the residential house versus the hotel. And so it made it really complex, but we were able to do a lot of creative financing. So we had to do a $3.1 million raise, and the house is worth about 1.4. So that is something that we had to figure out. Do we keep it? Do we sell it? Do we short-term rent it? Do we add it to the inventory of the hotel? We have to go through some permitting to do that. But The great thing about this hotel is that it's got the two different buildings. We're going to make it very pet friendly, especially on the back building where there's some access to additional gardens. The differentiator for this hotel is absolutely the outdoor space. Nobody else in Solvang has on-site outdoor space like we do, and so we're doing a heavy focus on creating communal space and private spaces, fire pits, wedding venue, and it's going to be absolutely incredible when we're done. Solvang's an amazing town in Santa Barbara Mountains, coastal wine country. It's one of those Danish towns where everything's like windmills and all that, but it's an amazing property. We're really proud of it. And so the goal is to get to 1.7 in gross revenue. So a lot of people talk about ADR and occupancy and RevPAR. And those are great to understand and to know because it helps define your strategy on pricing. Like, are you going to go for a lower occupancy or a higher occupancy? What's your RevPAR? But what I like to look at is what is our gross revenue? And because it's relative to all your expenses, right? If you know what your fixed costs, if you know what you're paying your property manager, if you know what your staff costs, if you know what you owe your investors, then it's easier just to do the math on the NOI. And so ultimately the goal is to have this property be worth close to $10 million when it's all said and done. And so again, we're trying to essentially double the value of the property. And if we raise 3.1 and then it's worth 10, then we're basically trying to triple our investor money. And so this again is where the velocity of money comes into play. So when you're thinking about things, if we're trying to 2.5x our investor money, and we're saying we're going to hold it for 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, let's say 10 years, because who knows what the hell's going to happen. So 2.5x an investor money in 10 years. At year 3, when we've done all the renovations, we've stabilized revenue, if we can sell and double our investor money in 3 years, we should do that, because you would have to wait another 7 years just to get that extra 0.5 multiple.
Yep.
Right. And so that's sort of what you need to be thinking about, especially when you're a syndicator, when you're raising money to do a deal, is how do I take care of my investors and their money and what's the best for them? So if we're trying to sell for 10, but we get an offer for 9 at year 3, we should take that, right? Because that's good for our investors. And ideally, we have another hotel lined up for them to be able to roll their money into so they avoid paying taxes and, all of that. So I'm really excited for this. We're completely renovating the rooms. It's going to be a brand new property. It was the original motel in town, I think, or I guess you can call it a hotel, single level. It's cute as can be. I mean, I love it.
Awesome, man. So congratulations. This sounds like an awesome project. It seems like it's also exciting and you get to design it, and it's not just, Ryan and I are part of multifamily, and it's, it's less exciting, right? Because you're not designing a space that people get to enjoy. That's why I do dabble in the Airbnbs. But you kind of teed me up here. So it's interesting that you said what you said, because Ryan and I are general partners on a ground up development project in Phoenix, Arizona. And we've raised some capital for this project. Is a very good friend of ours who's a tech multi-millionaire, but became financially free through real estate while he was building his tech career. And he sold his company for hundreds of millions of dollars, but then he fell in love with real estate. So what he's doing, he's working off the velocity of money. It's a fund. It's called 10Y, 10 years to retirement. And basically what it does is it works off the principle that you don't have enough cash flow in the beginning to retire. You have enough cash flow after 10 years to retire. So you're putting your dollars into a fund and you're building ground up development projects. And every 2 years, you move that project into another project and you do it 5 cycles. So in theory, if you double your money, which is vanilla in my, I'm saying that in parentheses because things can go wrong. But if you can double your money in 2 to 3 years, but you keep your money in the fund and then it doubles again and doubles again, it's 2 to the 5th power, which is actually 32x your money. Exactly. A lot of things have to go right. A lot of things have to make sense for that to happen. And there's no guarantees, but the theory is really truly the velocity of money. So if you put in $100,000 in theory in 10, 12 years, you would have $3.2 million, right? Add that, and you can draw $150,000 off that and live off your cash flow. So we haven't talked about this on a podcast episode in a while, but the velocity of money is just so important to think of. Is like these people that came into this deal are buying into a fund for 10 years and they have to be patient, but their money's working for them and they can pull their initial investment out after year 3 or 4 anyway on a refi or a sale. But I just love the concept of it. And you're right, dude. If you can, why wait that extra 6 years if you can double your investor money in 3? And then again, your job as a syndicator or an operator is to go find the next deal. And if people got their money back and doubled it in 3 years, why would they not reinvest with you? So I think it's great. Yeah, go ahead.
This is why I love doing the podcast, is because even doing the Sylvang Hotel deal, and I'm under contract on a couple others, but they're just taking longer than we expected. But I'm even like, okay, this is too small. I want to go bigger. I also want to build what I want to build. I want to build art and nature. I want to create landscape resorts. I want to create these experiences for people where they connect with themselves and they connect with nature, that are out just remote, but honestly, I want to create like Amangiri style experiences for people, right? And I know it's a high bar, but I've also been thinking about, it's not going to work with the syndicator model. It's not going to work with the syndicator. There's like to close on a deal where you have to wait a year or work a year to get entitlements and all these other things. It's like that. It doesn't feel like the right thing, but what you just described, I'm like, okay, that makes more sense. And I've been thinking about the VC model, the private equity model of invest with me. You're not going to get money for 3 to 5 years or 10 years.
Yep.
It's my fund. Yeah. And so now I love that, because now I'm like, okay, this is what I need to go do, because I want to go build something, but I need the ability to go do it. And I need the ability and trust and money behind me to go do it. And I know that I'm confident in myself that I can go do this. If you just take the syndication deals on their own, a lot of it, like none of them pencil out. Only like 10% of the deals that you see online actually pencil at the price that they're, and so like even looking at something that I want to do, it's hard to make the traditional syndication model work, because there's just a bunch of unknown. There's a ton of upside, but it might be a little bit riskier because we're doing ground up development and utilities, and will people pay, and you're in the middle of nowhere, or whatever the things are. But if you can find the people that trust you and they trust in the vision, and I love the tech model, because the tech model is, I'm going to invest in 5 things. If one of them takes off and the other 4 fail, then like we're going to 32x our money, right?
Yep. I totally agree. And I think that's why it's about trust, and the community and the masterminds are so important, because you build the trust with those people that you end up going to battle with. And like, I see these deals all over the internet, and they're 506C, which means, you can blast it out. And I think anything that's promising like a 25 or a 25% return right now, I just think, that's interesting. Like, I wonder who these people are. I'm not suggesting that it's not working, but we didn't buy any real estate in 2024, none. And I don't say that like shamefully. I say that because nothing penciled out for us, so we didn't buy, and I'm okay to not buy. We bought in June of 2023 an 18 unit, and then in 2025, like the first week, we got this 10 unit under contract, and we made offers and things just didn't work in 2024. So don't force it just to say you're a real estate investor, right? Like, that's, if you're listening, like, there are deals out there, but it's harder than it was in 2017 for sure. But people like Cassidy are doing it. And not that long ago, dude, you were renting out your bedroom for $35 a night. It wasn't that long ago. It probably feels crazy, like a lifetime ago, right? But
it does. But then when you think about it, it's like, wow, that was not that long ago. We started in 2015. I think we stopped by 2018, but still,
10 years.
It was not that long ago. And you do need the 5-year time horizon. And I would say go hard on like 1 or 2 lanes in real estate. If you're the type of person that's buying a bunch of different, and you're flipping and you're wholesaling and your Airbnb and your apartments and you're this and you're that, you're not doing it. Like, you need to focus on, like, in real estate, I think it's okay to have 2 things, because there's always a couple strategies that you need to be balancing. Like, I think, just to cap people off, if you want some advice from me on where to go, number 1, always do value add. Always do value add. Unless you're like the turnkey master and you can go find the turnkey cash flowing properties. But
I'll give you one example. You're 100% right. That's why we didn't buy anything in 2024. We bought a turnkey property in the beginning of 2025, and ordinarily I wouldn't do it. And this is the reason why we did it. So if you were looking for some advice too on like the strategy, the reason why we're able to do it is because we're in an A- area, bars, restaurants, actually on a country club, part of a country club. So the tenants get access, but the rents On the long term, we're like 2,100 for a 2-bedroom. And we are 12 minutes, 15 minutes from a healthcare institution, and we got stipends for $3,000 for midterm rentals. So that would be, and I agree with you, because it's a longer play. Like, we're holding 5 to 7 years, because in order to pay back investors like that, but the cash flow starts day one. So anyway, I agree with you. Ordinarily, I wouldn't, but there are a couple strategies that you could use if you buy something that pencils out long term. You turn them into short-term rentals, or you turn them into midterm. But you got to really know what you're doing. And I don't even claim to know what I'm doing that much. Just our partnership with our team really is just, they're brilliant. So yeah, that's
we'll have to talk more. I need to pick your brain on building up the team and what's been most valuable. But yeah, just like, I think for everyone out there, value add, which means like luxury flips, flip and hold the Burr model, ADUs, like go talk to Chris Luna out in San Diego, Thatch up in Seattle about ADUs. It's not just like converting a garage. Now, that is one strategy, but there's reasons why ADUs are so valuable right now, because you're able to value them as an individual asset and not as part of the overall house on the lot. And so that changes everything. And so understanding the regulations and what you can use in your favor. I'm always a proponent of luxury flip to Airbnb. And then also just something else that people don't really mention. If you have a spouse, one of you should be a real estate professional and evaluate whether you really want to quit your job or not. One of you might be a really high income earner, maybe both of you, but maybe one of you is a really high income earner. Keep doing that. Leverage the hell out of your high income job. If you're a software engineer making over 6 figures, multiple 6 figures, keep doing that for as long as you possibly can, and implement the strategies that I've talked about, where you're not focused on cash flow, you're focused on building wealth. And then if your partner can be a real estate professional, meaning a realtor, or they're a full-time investor themselves, then you get all the tax benefits that nobody else gets access to. Like, that hack no one talks about, where one person in the relationship should be a realtor or real estate professional and not actually have their job, because the tax benefits are so great if you earn enough money.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Ryan and I have, I can't tell you how much business we've referred out. We're actually not, we don't have our license. And I was thinking, like, the amount of dollars that we've, and it's okay, because it's part of our business. Like, we coach people how to buy real estate, but we're getting our license so that when we, like when we refer out business, we can get paid on it. So yeah, man, this is great. I just, I love talking to you. You're easy to talk to. Your story is pretty cool. And it's, I hope you take this the right way. It's like something that's repeatable for someone else to do. Like, they can do what you did, and they can reap the benefits of what, but you said 10 years, dude. And like, I think that's a lot better than the alternative of you still being an engineer 10 years later and not having fulfillment in what you do every day. So my last question for you is, knowing what you know now, I assume we're around the same age. I'm 33. How old are you?
38.
38. Okay. Similar, but yeah, a couple years older. So I asked this is like your 18-year-old self. If you were to go back to your 18-year-old self, and knowing what you know now about the world, about the velocity of money, about real estate, about investing and business, what advice would you give them?
Well, number one, I would say continue to have fun, continue to explore, continue to like go out, like don't drink so much, or just stop drinking. But like, go out and have fun. Like, your 20s, you really need to go explore. You need to try everything, say yes to everything. I actually have a podcast episode about this. I think it's called like Dominate Your 20s, but I have all the advice that I would tell my 18-year-old self. But one of the specific things would be buy a house a year, live in it, rent it out, house hack it with roommates. You're going to live with roommates anyways. Like, most 18 to 28-year-olds are going to live with roommates during that 10-year period. Buy a house a year, live with roommates, live in it for a year, then go buy another one. By the time you're 28 years old, you will literally have 10 properties if you haven't sold any of them. And you would have paid basically zero for all of them, because you're going to do the 3.5% to 5% down. You're going to rent it out. You're probably going to make money renting from your friends. And then you're going to have 10 freaking properties, and you're going to move every year, no matter what. You're going to move every year, no matter what. Everybody, this is the easiest way to wealth. At 18 years old, whatever you need to do to go get into your first property that's a good deal, live in it, rent it out, and do that every single year.
That's great advice. I did it a couple times. I wish I did it 20 more times. So yeah. That's great, man. I appreciate your time. You have a podcast of your own. Everyone go follow Kassidy on Instagram. I think it's just Kassidy.Warren, right? But you tell me, what's the best?
Yeah. So
what's
so
the best way for people to get in touch with you?
The podcast is For Your Own Good. It's on Spotify, Apple. We're starting to upload to YouTube. There's video on Spotify. It's called For Your Own Good. And then Instagram, it's at Kassidy.Warren, and that's Cassidy with a K. Happy to chat and looking forward to meeting everyone from listening to this podcast.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. This is a great conversation. We're linked in a couple circles. I'm looking forward to meeting you in person. But I appreciate you coming on today and sharing your story. And I think it'll resonate with a lot of people listening.
Corey, appreciate it so much. And we'll have to have you on. I'm doing it in person. So next time I'm in town, we'll do it.
I'll come out to you. But yeah, okay. Ryan and I had this podcast tour that we need to do. I just didn't want to do one. So I got to get on if I can go on 5 or 6 and they're all in your area, by the way. So we'll plan that.
Yes, definitely, dude.
Awesome.